All right, so get ready because today we are diving deep into Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Buckle up.
You know it. You've handed us a copy of this American classic, and we're here to unpack its characters, their motivations, and just the deeper meaning of this timeless story.
Yeah. It's amazing how relevant this book still is today. It was published over a century ago.
I know.
Twain was a master at weaving social commentary into his stories.
He really was. So let's just get started with the main character, Huckleberry Finn, right? This rebellious kid who's constantly butting heads with the civilized world around him. What stands out to you about Huck, especially in those early chapters?
You know, I think for me, it's his yearning for freedom.
Yeah.
He's so uncomfortable with societal norms.
Right.
Always trying to escape the constraints that are placed upon him.
Yeah, you really see it. I mean, with the Widow Douglas and Miss Watson.
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to civilize him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, his escape from his abusive father, Pap.
Right. Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
You just see that desire for freedom.
And he's so superstitious, too.
Oh, totally.
Remember that scene where he spills the salt and throws it over his shoulder
Yes.
to ward off bad luck?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he's navigating the world through, like, this lens of folklore and superstition, which I think is really interesting.
It's fascinating. And Twain uses those moments to really highlight how Huck's worldview is shaped by his environment, where he comes from,
Like, for sure.
the rural environment, but also his own personal experiences.
Absolutely. And speaking of shaping influences, you can't forget about Pap.
Oh, yeah.
How do you think his abusive behavior really impacted Huck?
Well, I think it definitely reinforces that distrust of authority figures.
Right.
You know, he's seen firsthand how hypocritical and cruel the civilized world can be.
Yeah.
So he's got this inherent distrust. But I think that's also what makes his relationship with Jim, the runaway slave, so powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like this incredible space for both of them to learn and grow.
Yes. I love their dynamic.
You have Huck, who was raised to believe that slaves were less than human. Right.
Slowly recognizing that Jim is actually intelligent, compassionate, an individual.
Yeah.
And then, on the flip side, you have Jim.
Right.
Yearning for freedom and family and finding a genuine connection with this rebellious boy who sees him as a person.
Yeah, and not property, which is huge at that time.
Exactly.
And it's so fascinating how Twain really juxtaposes their backgrounds and beliefs. You know, you mentioned that scene where Huck spills the salt. Well, later on, we have Jim with his hairball magic.
Oh, yes.
Right. Reading signs, looking for omens. They're both, in a way, looking for answers, right? But they're coming at it from completely different cultural lenses.
Absolutely. But, ultimately, I think those superstitions actually bring them closer together.
Okay. Yeah.
It highlights their shared humanity.
Yeah.
It shows that even though they come from different worlds, they're both just trying to navigate life.
Yeah.
With hope and fear, logic and intuition.
I love that. It's like, yeah, they're both just human.
Okay, so we can't talk about Huck without mentioning Tom Sawyer.
Right.
I mean, he's almost this embodiment of a romanticized version of boyhood adventure. What do you think about Tom?
I mean, he represents that allure of escapism and imagination.
Yeah.
But he's also so deeply rooted in societal norms that Huck is trying to break free from.
Right.
Remember that scene where Tom lets Huck join the gang of robbers?
Uh-huh.
But only if he offers up Miss Watson as a potential victim?
Yeah. It's kind of a chilling moment when you think about it.
It really is. It underscores the cruelty that can exist within those seemingly harmless childhood games.
Yeah. Yeah, it's dark.
And I think it foreshadows how Tom's presence later complicates things for Huck and Jim.
Right.
Especially towards the end.
Right. We'll get there.
Oh, we will.
But it definitely raises the question, is Tom truly capable of seeing beyond the world he was raised in?
Yeah. Can he really embrace the same moral evolution that Huck goes through?
Right.
We'll see.
Big questions. Okay, so let's talk about some of the big themes running through Huckleberry Finn. This tension between freedom and civilization, with Huck obviously caught in the middle.
You know, it's almost like the Mississippi River itself embodies that tension.
Ooh, interesting.
It's a symbol of escape, of adventure. But it's also unpredictable.
Yeah, and dangerous.
Right. And just like Huck's journey, it's full of twists and turns,
That's full of
moments of peacefulness, and then sudden bursts of chaos.
Yeah, and of course there's the issue of racism and slavery.
Yeah.
Twain doesn't shy away from showing us how brutal and hypocritical this institution was.
No, he doesn't. And that scene where Jim talks about being worth $800
Oh, yeah.
and owning himself.
It's so powerful.
It's incredibly poignant. It really forces you to confront how dehumanizing slavery was.
It's heartbreaking. But it's also a testament to how resilient Jim is.
It really is.
And his belief in his own worth,
Yeah.
He refuses to be defined by how society sees him.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes Huck's internal struggle so compelling. He was raised to believe those labels.
Right.
But his interactions with Jim are forcing him to question everything he thought he knew.
Yes. And you see that really come to a head when Huck decides to go to hell for helping Jim.
Oh, that's such a pivotal moment.
It is.
Because he's choosing human connection over blind obedience.
Yeah.
He's saying, I'm going to follow my own moral code.
A big statement.
Yeah.
All right, so we've talked about some key themes, but I want to get your take on some specific scenes and symbols. What about the raft? What does that represent for Huck and Jim?
The raft becomes their sanctuary,
Okay.
the place where those traditional hierarchies are suspended.
I like that.
It's a place where they can be equals, free from the judgments of the outside world,
Yeah.
and it's where their friendship truly flourishes.
It's like this little microcosm of society
Exactly.
where they can create their own rules.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's on that raft where we see some of the most important conversations about freedom, morality, and life itself unfold.
I love that. It's like this little floating stage for them to really connect.
Yeah, exactly. It's a stage for introspection, for debate, for growth.
It's where Huck really starts to figure out who he is and what he believes in, and where Jim gets to share his wisdom and his hopes for the future.
It's a beautiful thing. It is. But their idyllic existence on the raft gets disrupted
Oh, yeah.
when they encounter the Duke and the Dauphin.
Right, those two unforgettable con men.
Yes. What do you make of them and all the chaos they bring?
It's like this sudden injection of absurdity and corruption into the narrative, right?
Totally.
They represent everything Huck's trying to get away from.
Right.
The hypocrisy, the greed, the manipulation that you see in the civilized world.
Exactly. And it really forces Huck to confront that darker side of human nature.
Yeah.
And you also see the vulnerability of those who are marginalized or exploited.
Right.
Think about how the Duke and the Dauphin prey on people's gullibility. Oh, yeah.
They just exploit their kindness and trust for their own gain.
That episode in Bricksville.
Oh, yes.
With the royal nunsuch scam.
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it also makes you cringe.
Yes.
Because you see how easily people are deceived.
They are.
Especially when they're just looking for a little bit of entertainment or a sense of community.
Twain was so brilliant using satire like that.
Oh, he was a master.
To expose those flaws in society and how power can be abused.
For sure. And it's interesting how Huck reacts to their antics.
Yep.
At first, he's kind of amused by it all.
Right, like he's in on the joke.
Yeah, but then it gets crueler and his conscience starts to kick in.
It does. It's like he's witnessing the harm they're inflicting firsthand.
Yeah.
And he starts to question his own role in all of it.
Remember when he tries to protect the Wilkes sisters from being swindled?
Oh, yes.
He even tries to steal the money back from the king and the duke?
He does. That's a real turning point for Huck.
Yeah.
He goes from just observing to taking action.
Even if it means putting himself at risk.
He's not just going along with it anymore.
No, he's making a choice.
Yeah.
His conscience is driving his decisions.
He's not just following those expectations of his upbringing anymore.
He's developing his own moral code.
Absolutely. And that moral compass is really put to the test when he thinks Jim's been captured and sold back into slavery.
Oh, my God.
That's when he says, all right, then I'll go to hell.
Chills.
Right.
One of the most powerful moments in the book.
It's huge. He's defying everything society has taught him.
He is.
Choosing loyalty and compassion over blind obedience to a system he knows is wrong.
Exactly.
And just as he's dealing with this moral dilemma, guess who shows up?
Oh, no, Tom Sawyer.
Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
Talk about complicating things.
Right. It's like Twain is using Tom to satirize how society trivializes the suffering of others.
Oh, interesting.
You know how real pain just becomes entertainment or an elaborate scheme?
Yeah.
It's frustrating, too, seeing Huck get swept up in Tom's reckless plans after all that moral progress.
I know. But Huck's still young.
He is.
And Tom represents that world he's always known.
That world of make-believe and adventure.
Right. It's hard to break free from that.
It is. It's a lifelong process.
So then we have this elaborate completely unnecessary escape.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Orchestrated by Tom,
Yeah.
and it puts Jim right back in danger.
I know. And
And
then,
then Tom reveals Jim was free the whole time.
The whole time. What a roller coaster.
Talk about a roller coaster of emotion. So what do you make of that?
Well, on one hand, it's shocking, but it also exposes how absurd the whole situation was.
Right.
The lengths Tom would go to for a staged adventure.
Exactly.
But it also underscores, on a deeper level, this hypocrisy.
Okay.
How can a society that values freedom allow a system like slavery to continue?
It's a big question.
It is.
So Jim is finally free. Huck's reunited with Tom.
Yeah.
Aunt Sally wants to adopt him.
Right?
But it doesn't feel like a happily ever after ending, does it?
It doesn't. It's ambiguous on purpose. Huck even says he wants to light out for the territory.
Rather than be civilized.
Exactly. It suggests that he's still searching for true freedom.
Yeah.
A world where he can just be himself.
Without conforming.
Exactly.
So we've followed Huck and Jim down the river. We've seen their struggles, their triumphs.
Their growth.
Right. But there's one thing we haven't really talked about.
What's that?
Some of it happens early on, but I think it casts a shadow over the whole book.
You're talking about Pap's death?
Yeah. It always seemed like just a plot device to get Huck on the river in the first place.
That's how it seems at first glance.
Yeah, but you're saying there's more to it.
I think so.
More to Pap's death than just getting Huck on that raft.
Yeah, think about it. Huck's essentially an orphan,
Right.
adrift in this world that doesn't seem to have a place for him.
Yeah, he's always searching for connection.
He is, looking for someone who truly understands him.
And he finds that with Jim.
Absolutely, in a way he never could with his own father.
So Pap's death, as tragic as it is, it creates the space for that friendship to grow.
It's like this paradox, The absence of a father allows for this chosen family.
I like that. A chosen family.
One built on respect and shared experience.
Yeah, not just blood ties.
Exactly.
So that adds a whole new layer to Huck's decision to light out for the territory at the end.
It does.
He's not just rejecting society.
No.
He's rejecting his father's legacy.
It's a powerful statement
It is.
about breaking free from those cycles of abuse and prejudice.
And choosing to create his own path.
Right, one based on compassion and connection.
Wow, that's really insightful.
Thanks.
It makes you think about family,
It does.
and how those bonds we choose can sometimes be even stronger than the ones we're born with.
I think that's the beauty of Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah.
It speaks to these universal experiences.
Right.
That search for identity,
Yeah.
the longing for connection.
And trying to figure out what's right and wrong.
In a world that's not always fair or easy to understand.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn,
Yeah.
what's the biggest takeaway for you? What do you hope listeners will think about after listening to this?
I think for me, it's the idea that true freedom comes from questioning things, challenging the status quo,
Yeah.
following your own moral compass,
Even when it's hard.
even when it's unconventional. Huck reminds us we can choose our own family,
Love that.
define our own values,
Yeah.
create a better world.
Beautifully said. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey down the Mississippi.
It's been my pleasure.
With Huck and Jim,
Such a great book.
we've explored their characters, the themes of freedom, racism, morality,
Yes.
and just the power of this American classic.
It's a book that stays with you.
It does.
It makes you think.
And this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Huckleberry Finn invites you to read it again and again.
Absolutely.
Come to your own conclusions.
Find those passages that speak to you.
Right. Keep grappling with those questions that Twain raises.
That's what makes it so great.
What resonated with you in this deep dive? What are your thoughts on Huck's final decision? Share your thoughts on social media and keep those conversations going. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.